You are listening to the People Centric podcast, where we talk through the toughest challenges that people face at work and give practical advice to fixing those challenges. Thanks for joining our movement to create workplaces that are happier, healthier, aligned, and empowered by putting people at the center of all that we do.
Hello again, People-Centric leaders, back with another episode here of our podcast. And we're excited to be joined by, of course, I'm excited to be joined by my coworkers all the time, but I'm excited more so to be joined by you, the listener. You're the one that drives this, right? You're the one that loves us unconditionally. At least that's what I hear from a lot of folks. I didn't tell you guys, by the way. I had lunch with somebody here in my hometown. She works at a bank, and she said, I told her we had a podcast, and she said, I know, I listen to it all the time. We have so many listeners that I don't know that listen to the podcast. So guys, what I'm saying is be on your best behavior. You never know who's listening. It might be somebody right down the street. Diana, I'm looking at you.
I legit thought you were going to be like, I'm so excited to be joined by especially Diana and Bethany. Like, I thought you were just going to like shout us out
No,
specifically.
no, no. I see you guys all
Not
the time.
today.
I see you guys all the time, but I will say this, as I guess you can tell, Diana and Bethany are both here. Diana, I'm going to introduce you like this just so we can hear your voice. I know we just heard your voice, but I'm also going to put you on the spot. Within arm's reach, what's the most random thing that you have around you right now that you can share? We are on YouTube. This is on video too, if you'd like to see this, but what's the most random things? And I know you have kind of shorter arms, so I'm sorry if you have to get up, that's okay. Random thing. She's reaching for something. Oh, what is that, Diana?
This is a Schitt's Creek ornament of David Rose, and he speaks. Let me see if I can push his button. He says things. I'm trying very hard not to connect with people right now. That's what he said.
I'm trying very hard not to connect with people. That looks like the most amazing Secret Santa gift you've ever probably received. Who gave that to you?
Matt Griswold. This was
Yeah.
a gift from Matt Griswold.
Oh, I totally missed that. That's amazing.
He gave it to me before the party, but I didn't put it away with the Christmas stuff. He's staying on my desk all year round.
Yeah, and just some behind the curtain information for the listeners right now. Most of the time, Diana and I communicate through Schitt's Creek's gifts. They're those one-liners from the show. It's pretty funny, and that's how we communicate most of the time. And our relationship is a little bit like David and Alexa's relationship on the show too. Would you agree with that?
Also, I'm very much wearing a David Rose sweater. I feel like David Rosie.
There's a certain episode where David tries to sell his clothes to a local flea market because he is very proud of them. That looks like one of those, this is at least $500. And they're like, are you kidding? I couldn't give that away. Not that I think it's lovely, but it's maybe one of those. You know what I'm talking about.
You hate it. That's fine. It's fine.
Welcome, Diana. Bethany.
Very nice.
Bethany, I think you're gonna so help me if you pull out a baby. What's the most random thing around you right now?
Wow, it's so weird that you would say that. There's this baby right here just sitting here. It's so crazy.
If you listen to our last podcast, you got to meet baby Taff on the last podcast there too. She had lots of things to say during that podcast, and she might interject today just a little bit.
Yeah, you might see some feet if you're watching on YouTube. Some little feet here every once in a while.
It's so cute. You should watch on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're very cute little feet. So there's that. I don't know. The other most random thing, if you want to know, is this little cardboard camera that my children have made. And if you flip it over to the back, they have some pictures.
That's very creative.
I know. They're so creative. So
creative, so clever.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It's interesting, and I hope you as listening, if you are in your office or wherever, look around. Sometimes we accumulate stuff around us, and we become numb to it because it's always there. But it's like, why is that on? Here's mine, and my team has seen this. You might think I'm going to pull out the mirrored ball trophy from Dancing with the Stars, but it's not going to be that. We've seen that a lot. Now my team has also seen. My team has also seen this. This is a He-Man bottle of bubble bath from my childhood. His head pops off like that, and you unscrew it here, and he is
Yeah.
still you still smell the bubble bath.
The
My
bubble,
mom
I remember
kept
those bubble baths.
everything, and I don't know why it's on my desk. But it's that's a He-Man straight from early 80s, probably. Bubble bath, and it's empty. It's not in there anymore, but it just sits here on my desk.
The
Also.
the first time you showed us that, like you had just gotten it or something, and I was like, that unlocked a weird core memory. Like I was like, whoa, so many things come
I
Yeah.
rushing
know,
back.
like all the character bubble
Right.
baths like that. They
Right.
don't do
We
that
had a
anymore,
Barbie
right? That's
one.
not a
Like,
thing,
yeah,
right?
And
yeah.
initially you would think, I'm 46 years old. I don't need the He-Man bubble bath thing on my chest. Throw that away immediately. No, it's gonna
Nope.
stay there. Whenever
Yeah.
I want to feel like a champion, but I'm a little down, then I'll grab He-Man. Because, well, if you know, you know, right? Anyway, that's just a peek into our lives. I'm sad that Don and Stephanie and Philip missed it, because I know they have some randomness going on as well. But let's get into the topic here, and I'm going to share a story with you of what inspired this topic. Last week, I was on a phone call with a CEO from an orthopedic clinic, and the CEO of the orthopedic clinic was talking about, man, these are the things I think that People Centric can help us with. Of course, leadership development. And this is like the theme of 2024, by the way. It seems I've had 5 different conversations with 5 different organizations about leadership development. What can you do to help me develop my leaders? They're worried about succession planning, just like this CEO was. But one of the things he said was really interesting to me. And boy, it's something that maybe we don't verbalize, but we feel, especially if you are a manager of a group of people or if you're an owner of a business, you want your people to stay, so much so that you're upset when they leave. And I don't know if that's always the right reaction. I know we don't want to be upset when they leave. In fact, this CEO said, man, internally, I'm dying on the inside because they're leaving and they were good. But externally, I've got to be happy for them because they're promoting and going on to new, better things. And actually, the CEO said it's going to be a better fit for them, and it's going to be a better situation for their family. And he recognized that, and he said, externally, I'm happy for them. Internally, I'm dying. I'm dying because I don't want to lose the good ones. And it brings up this odd kind of a catch-22 or a paradox, however you want to say it. It brings up this odd situation of where is that line? If I'm a business owner, if I'm a manager, if I'm in charge of a group of people, however you want to say that, how do I find that balance of being happy for my people whenever they want to go promote? And sometimes we work the opposite way. Sometimes I don't want to develop new skill sets or develop this new thing in them because you know what they're going to do? They're going to leave, and I can't have them leave. And so we kind of pigeonhole them, maybe involuntarily or accidentally. We fall into that gap. And then from the other side, and these are the 2 topics that we're going to talk about. From the other side, the employee, you might be listening to this right now as an employee going, I feel like I work for these people where they don't give me opportunities to be able to learn different stuff. And I feel like I'm just doing the same thing. I'm going to be stuck in here forever. Or they're going, I don't have, even if I did work harder, there's nowhere else for me to go around this place, right? Even if I did work harder, even if I did learn a new skill, I'm just stuck doing this the whole time. And maybe you feel like that too. So how does that person find winning in that situation and things? So Diana.
Is this another intervention, you guys? Because if you leave, A, you're dead to me. I'll never speak to you again. And
Wow.
also, there's 6 of us. There's nowhere to go but up. You can't go up or down. This is it.
You said nowhere to
Sorry.
go but
I'm
up,
so
but I'm
glad you
glad
brought
you
this
I'm
up.
glad you corrected that.
There
Yeah.
is no up or down. There's nowhere to go. I should just say there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
promotions.
Yeah, don't say you're dead to us just yet. The episode's not over. We're going to learn some things on this where maybe we won't be dead to you if we do choose to move upward and onward. Upward and onward, right? Bethany, has another mouth to feed. She's got to make some decisions here, right? So
That's true. So
all right, let's start from the leadership's perspective, and maybe we've seen this, and I don't care where you want to necessarily start. Just some thoughts that I had in my mind of what we see typically is we'll see some of these leaders where they do accidentally pigeonhole people. And what do we mean? I guess let's define some of these things because we hear terms like golden handcuffs and pigeonhole, those types of things. What do we mean by that? Like if we said somebody was pigeonholing that person, what does that mean?
I think you see it when it's like this person is very, very good at what they do. And so I'm just going to keep them in this role, right? Even though I think they want something else, even though I think they could do something else, I'm going to keep them here because they are very good at that. And I can't replace that thing. I can't replace what they do in this spot. And so I'm just going to like keep paying them really well to do this one very specific job and not let them grow or move or change or, whatever. I'm just going to let them continue doing what they're doing and hope that they're happy about that.
And what we've noticed too is sometimes you think because they're good at it, they like it. And maybe they liked it initially, but now that's the only thing they do because that's the only thing you're letting them do. And now even though maybe maybe I am good at it, but I don't like it. I don't like it. And I'm getting tired of that thing, but we haven't given them more opportunities to be able to see maybe what else they could do, or we haven't taken time to train anybody else to do that one thing so they can do something else. And we'll talk about that too. And you said pay them really, really well. And this kind of gives the idea of the golden handcuffs idea, right? What's the golden handcuffs?
Well, yeah, that one's interesting too. Bethany, if you wanna talk to it.
Well, I mean, the way that I interpret it is kind of like what you said, where it's like, okay, we have given somebody so many benefits, or we're paying them probably more than they actually should be paid for that job. So that they feel like even if they don't love the job or whatever, they're not going to move on because, well, the benefits and the pay is just so good. I couldn't make that anywhere else, or I couldn't get that anywhere else. So I have to stay here for as long as possible.
Yeah. And then I think it also allows leaders to be like, well, I pay you really well. So you are going to stay, but also I can demand a lot of you. So it's sort of this like feeling very stuck thing where it's like, I do get paid really well to do the job that I'm doing, but I also have to work 80 hours a week. And they also demand me to be here on weekends. And I also can't grow or change or learn. And I can't get some of the basic things I need for work, but they do pay me really well,
And you think about that, if you keep following that path, you think about that person that is stuck by the pigeonholing or the golden handcuffs, maybe they are good at that thing, maybe they get paid well, so they continue to show up. So eventually what you have a warm body that's showing up all the time to do the job, but they become disengaged, frustrated, ultimately toxic, because they start to feel that too. They recognize that, yeah, I am being paid well, but it's not rewarding, or it's not gratifying, or it's not, I don't have an opportunity to do other things anymore. And pretty soon you have a toxic individual that you're paying a lot of money to, and that's frustrating from a business owner, as well. So let's talk about this though. How do I balance that? So let's say that I am that leader, that effective leader in leadership development. What am I hoping to be able to gain from developing that person? And this is another reason why I'm saying this. Sometimes organizations or those leaders themselves have to understand what it is. What is your brand as an organization, and what brand are you personally portraying? I'm thinking of another small business. I won't say who it is, but another small business that we have worked with, but they were frustrated about developing people, and then ultimately those people jump ship and go to the bigger company. And why am I wasting time developing these people anyway? Why am I wasting that time? And we talked about, what if you were known for being so great at developing talent, and then they leave? I mean, they're going to the other place. There's probably nothing you can do about that. But what if you were so great at developing talent, you just had a pipeline of people that just couldn't wait for that development opportunity? Like, what if we reestablish that as that brand? So maybe there's a conversation internally that you need of, what is it that we are trying to do? What is it that motivates us to want to develop? Because we've seen the negative side maybe of that, but what's the positive side of, I guess, continuing that development culture from inside?
Think a lot of people enjoy development, right? It's not just about the skills that you're going to gain as a company or as an organization, because you will gain some. But I think a lot of people go into work craving information, knowledge, growth, right? I don't want to come to work and just do the same job over and over every day, all day, every week, day in, day out. I appreciate opportunities to grow. And I think our generation and the generation behind us are very growth motivated, very knowledge oriented. We want that continuing education. And so I think providing opportunities for that helps kind of everyone, right? But yeah, I don't think there's people that generally go into work and say like, I don't really care if I learn anything new. It's fine. I don't need anything.
I would say to add to that for employers, the benefit is that you'll probably be really great recruiters, you know? So even if you lose, if you're known for developing people and developing talent, and then people even move on from your organization to be really successful at other organizations or in other positions or things like that, the word's going to spread about that too. And so people are going to want to come to your organization. So you might be losing really good talent, but you're going to also make it a little bit easier for yourself to recruit new people who are really excited and eager to learn and grow and be just as great. So hopefully you kind of have a continuous flow of talent coming through.
Yeah, and that you kind of jumped us right into that. Maybe that next question I was going to ask too. Like, if we know that it hurts when people leave, and we know that we're going to be frustrated because now I have to interview, now I have to backfill, now I have to train. Maybe there's some steps you could take ahead of time in anticipation of what this looks like. How do we, maybe what are some tips to be able to help leadership prepare for that? Prepare for, I don't want to say that person leaving, but prepare for people leaving. There's probably some things they could do. I'll start with my thought here is a lot of times when we have this conversation, and the same thing that CEO said last week, like, I need to identify some succession planning here. I'm not sure who the next leaders are, which you can imagine if that's you and so leaves and I don't know who the next leaders are, that probably is a moment of despair there, because I have no clear sight of who the next leader would be. And I'll piggyback on that and say, not only do I not know who that person is, I'm not even 100% sure exactly what all that person did or what that next person might need to know. That person's maybe been in the job for 5 years. What does that position look like now? Like, what are some tips to be able to prepare leadership? People are going to leave. What are some things that we could maybe give them advice for on so they're a little bit more comfortable if people do have to leave?
Well, I love your succession planning, and I think that every organization should identify people that they want to move into those roles and let those people know that you want them to move into those roles so that those people themselves can start to prepare for that. I think oftentimes leaders are like, oh, yeah, it's a no brainer. It's going to be Sarah. She's definitely going to take over that role. And then Max leaves, and then Sarah is like, oh, I didn't know I was going to take over that role. I don't feel ready for that. I didn't ask Max anything. Max didn't write anything down. I don't know that I want to do that. And I think that if you had just talked to Sarah before Max left, then it makes it so much easier. And you can be like, okay, Sarah, here's what we're going to do to train you. Here's what we're going to do to develop you. Max, you need to meet with Sarah regularly. You need to write down your processes and your procedures and allow her to ask questions. Like, we're not pushing anybody one direction or another. We're just making sure everybody has the training that they need for that.
I love it that you said that to let them know too. Let Sarah in on it. Like, we think a lot of you. In fact, I might want to start giving Sarah, in your example, some more opportunities. Like, I think a lot of you. I want you to be prepared for this. Are you okay if we delegate a couple of additional things for you right now? Every time I say that, I think of like social media. Social media is this horrible, toxic place for that mentality. I saw a video the other day of like a lady. She was like looking at a clipboard, and the pages were going, and the caption above it was like, looking to see where in my contract or my job agreement it says that I'll do all of these additional responsibilities for no more pay. And it's such a horrible mentality. You're toxic. You're toxic, and that's breeding a horrible message. And we can talk more about that later. But the mentality of Sarah to be able to go, you know what? I do want to be in a good position. I love it that you love me. I love it that you think a lot of me. Yeah, I think if I want to be prepared, if I personally want to do a good job in that thing that you're trusting me to do, yeah, I do. I probably do need some additional skill sets. Can you train me in this, or can I have an opportunity to maybe do this? Not because I'm after more money, but because you're trusting me with this. And I think good employees are like, yeah, please help prepare me for this thing that you're trusting me with because I want to kill it for you too.
Yeah. And I think it's important to remember that like succession planning only works if your people are happy and want to stay, right? Like, it's not going to work if everybody is that toxic person and unhappy and doesn't want more responsibilities. So like, you do have to build a organization and managers that care and that want people to stay and so it's not all about the like exit. It's about the the culture that you're creating to keep people there too.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that you said that I kind of pulled out from that too is there was nothing written down on the job, which you can imagine that's a moment of despair for the leader too, going, "Oh, that person left," and then their first their first item of business the next day is like, "Let's find out what they did. What did they do? What was it that they were doing, and who needs to fill that?" And that's a horrible feeling, probably. We're now you're completely behind the eight ball, so to speak. And so maybe take a look around. Do we have, I'm not saying job descriptions, but do you have good understanding of what role clarity looks like with the team? Like, what are the things that you're asking them to do? What are the things that they think you're asking them to do? How do
Your
they
job
prioritize their
description.
time? Your job description. Yeah, those types of things. And
You
so,
said
Bethany, I
not.
know, say it again.
I was just laughing because you said I'm not necessarily saying job descriptions, and I'm saying yes, job descriptions. Do it. Just don't mess around. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just write some stuff on paper and put a title on there, and that's all you need to do. So
Yeah, but also like the standard operating procedures too, like how they go about doing that job description, right? Because sometimes that was all the leverage the employee had because they were the only one that knew how to do that. And you can imagine now they leave and it's like, job description, let's pull that out. But how do they accomplish step what I know that we have to do that. How did they do that thing? I don't know the steps to accomplish the description there. How did they go about doing that thing? And that you can, if we can capture some of that stuff early. Again, that's one of those breathe easier times, I think, for the leader too. Diana, were you going to add to that?
I was going to add that I also think job descriptions are living documents, so they should change often as the job changes, right? If I'm in a job for, I don't know, 10 years, my job is not the same as it was on day one as it is today. If you're on a job for 3 years, it's not the same as it was on day one as it is today. So update your job descriptions as you go. Maybe do it every time you do a performance evaluation. Say, like, what things have you taken on and what have you been doing so that your job description is up to date and current. But that's a bit of a tangent that Bethany and I could talk about for a long time.
I'm telling you, from the stage at those conferences, I asked that question quite a bit. Like, hey, when's the last time you saw your job description? Anybody have your job description? And very few hands go up. Right. We're just operated in, and part of you is like, I don't need a job description. I've been doing this job forever. I know exactly what this takes. Right. I mean, nobody knows this job better than I do. And that might be the problem. Maybe other people do need to know what that job looks like or how you're filling your time. What is it that you're doing? And I'll tell you what else, and this is maybe a tangent of mine that I've seen so much. If we don't have a good understanding of that, that just turns to frustration. Like, the leader's going, I don't know what those people do all day. I don't know what they're doing with, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? And then the employee's going, I'm not appreciated for anything that I do around here. They have no clue half the stuff that I do around this place. And then you see that frustration, but I digress. If we're talking about helping people leave gracefully, as a leader, if I have some of those standard operating procedures in place, if I have the job descriptions in place, if I have a good understanding of succession planning, I'm going to take that conversation much more gracefully that you need to leave, and I'm going to support you on that path because I feel good internally that I have a good path forward for how we are going to move, and I can help celebrate your success at the same time because I feel comfortable with where we are. Let's talk about the employee's perspective. What if I am that employee that feels like I don't have any of these opportunities? There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to grow. What are some steps that they can take maybe to help them? And I say two different ways: help them internally be the best version of themselves at work, but then also maybe help them get ultimately what it is that they want, and maybe that is to leave gracefully as well. Where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with sort of a controversial one, maybe, but like state your intent. Like tell your leader what you want. If back in the day, I had a employee come to me and say, I want your job. And my first reaction was like, well, I work here. You can't have it. But then my my second reaction was like, oh, cool. Well, let's get you to that. Right. I understand what you're saying. You want promotion, you want growth, you want to know what I do, you want to understand it better. So let's teach you that. Why can't I teach you everything that I do? I should be able to teach you everything that I do. And you should be gunning for my job if you want it. Like, I'm going to get you there. So I think if
that's the opposite, by the way, of what Don's experience was whenever he told the CEO that he wanted to be CEO, and they like scribbled it out and sent it back and said, "Don, be serious, be serious.
yeah,
What do
like,
you?
you can't be
You
CEO.
handled it. You handled it better, Diana."
Well, thank you, thank you. And but it was, we're a small team, and I very much valued this human being, and so they weren't just like a number or whatever. I think Don was like a weird just number in a giant machine, but regardless, I do think that person stating their intent to me and saying, I really do want to grow, I really want to learn, I want to be able to do the things that you're doing, was such a mindset shift for me as their leader. I could then say, hey, I'm gonna go do this thing, do you want to learn it? I'm doing this thing, do you want to try it? And it just gave them so many more opportunities for growth that I would not have given them if I did not know that they wanted it.
And dang, if you're a manager, don't you want people like that?
I do,
I mean,
I
if
do.
that's your team, don't you want people coming to you like that? Yeah.
I will still say that she was one of the most challenging people to manage because she wanted growth so bad, but it was still really good for me to be like, yeah, let's do it, let's get you what you want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you fired her. So anyway,
He
I'm
was
just kidding.
not fired.
I'm just kidding.
Wow. That was a
No.
low blow.
I'm just kidding.
She
Sorry,
tried to take my job, so I murdered her.
That was it. That was it for us.
One of the things that you talked about too before we started recording as we were going through this, one of the things, Diana, that you talked about that an employee can do to prepare is to be able to maybe start writing some of those things down and helping to train somebody else, like a peer. I know it's not your job. I know you're not the trainer. I know you're looking out for you, but maybe the end result of that is that you get ultimately what you want if you can help others feel more comfortable that the thing that you're doing now is going to be taken care of because you helped train other people the processes that you're following there too. And I think there's some credence to that. Is that captured in like an SOP, or how would somebody go about doing that? Like, let's say there's an employee listening right now and they're like, how do I just, I sit next to Gladys. Do I just tell Gladys, like, hey, Gladys, this is what how do they go about doing that? And maybe what's the right approach for doing that?
There's probably 100 ways you could do it, and I think it depends on what it is. But I had a lot of success when I was, coming through the ranks or whatever you want to call it. I had a lot of success of just looking at my coworker and being like, hey, I'm going to be unavailable to do this thing. Can I show you how to do it so that you can do it? I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to be, in a different meeting or whatever. And just sort of say, like, you can totally know how to do this. There's no reason I should be the only one to know. And ultimately, we're supposed to be doing the same job and working for the same company and doing the same goals. So, like, you should know how to do this too. And I do think a lot of times I was the only one who knew how to do it because I had like lasted the longest, right? I was the employee that had been there the longest time or whatever. I'd been doing the job for longer than everybody else. So I was the only one who knew how to do it. And once I started saying things like, can I show you how to do this? Can you do this for me while I am doing something else? It totally helped. And it made my job, even in the current role, way easier because I was like, oh, there's not so much pressure that if I go out of town or if I am too busy or if a project pops up that no one else knows how to do this, there is somebody else that can take it for me, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And you're almost like it's almost like a train the trainer there too. And again, this goes back to your succession planning. They have to kind of want to learn that too. And I would say you probably want to get the blessing of the manager that you're teaching the right person, the right person that like, no, don't tell them. There's no chance they're going to take that job when you leave. You might want to just make sure that you're teaching the right person some of those other skill sets there as well. But all right, so we've mentioned this a couple of times, and I know we're running short on time, but we've mentioned this a couple of times of leaving gracefully and letting somebody leave gracefully and well. What does that mean, and what does that entail? So, if I am an employee, we were just talking about employees. If I'm an employee, what does it mean to leave gracefully? Like, what does that look like? What do we mean by that?
Well, there's lots of scenarios. I'm thinking of like, where do we start with this? I think if you have an employee who is doing really well in their position and there's just nowhere, either there's nowhere else for them to go within the organization, or honestly, you just didn't have the conversation soon enough that you wanted them to be there longer and they went off and they found something else or somebody recruited them or whatever. Like, yeah, you kind of just have to take that and not be frustrated about it. And I think if you're an employer who has if you can genuinely say this employee is really good and they gave it their all while they were here and they did everything that we asked them to and maybe even more, and dang it, I wish I would have had the conversation with them, but now they're going off to this other organization. Give them the best recommendation you possibly can and wish them well and ask them how you can support them in their next role. And just be there. I think just be there for them and speak highly of them to their next employer. And maybe even ask them, hey, do you have anybody that you would recommend to fill your position too? Because I think if you had really good success with that employee, they're probably going to be able to give you a good recommendation for somebody else who might be really good at that job too. And so I don't know, that's the first thing that comes to mind with letting somebody leave gracefully.
And I love that scenario. There's another scenario too, and I've seen this play out with us and others, but maybe it didn't work out. It wasn't the employee saying that I'm ready to move on. It was the employer going, it's time to move on. But you can still do that gracefully at the same time, right? And I've noticed this, and we give Don shout outs for being a great leader for us quite a bit. But I've known this where employees of the past weren't working here anymore. It just didn't work out, but Don will still meet with them and go take them to a cup of coffee and coach them up and help them find another opportunity that maybe suits them well. And I've seen that a lot too. I think that goes right in line with letting them leave gracefully, and so I would say regardless of the circumstance, I get it. There's crazy circumstances, but you can still allow your folks to leave gracefully, support them. And again, those are going to be one of your biggest billboards whenever they leave, whether they left well or not. How do you want them talking about you or your organization moving forward for recruiting purposes as well? So, Diana?
Yeah, something Don and I talk about a lot for both sides, the employee and the employer, when someone is separating employment, is the thankful aspect, right? As the employee, I hope that you are thankful that the company has paid you and provided you benefits and, given you training or skills or whatever. I hope that you're thankful for that. You could also be thankful that you learned tough lessons like what not to do, right? You could be thankful for those things. And then as the employer, we are always very thankful for the work that that employee provided, whether it was 100% top notch or not. I'm thankful that they took the time to be part of our team, that they, did work for us, whether I thought it was great or not. Like, I'm still thankful that they did that because I think that's important. As humans, we treat people like humans, right? Like, so I think it goes both ways. And I think thankfulness is something that we don't talk a lot about in the exit part, but I really encourage people to be thankful on both sides of that process.
Well, that's good. That's great. And that came from Diana. We want to give her credit because we beat her up a lot of times for being this, this mean one. But
I
she's
am the mean
really,
one.
yeah.
That's Don's. That's all Don, guys.
And I'm gonna finish with this. If I am that leader, I can hear maybe some of those managers or business owners going, yeah, but how do I know where my people are? How do I know that they're thinking about leaving? How do I know what they don't know? How do I, something that we like to say quite a bit. And I hear Don say this, Diana, you say this as well. You happen to have an expert on exactly what they're thinking in-house. And that is that person. And sometimes we don't know because we don't ask. If there's not an opportunity, if there's not an opportunity that you all have now to be able to sit down regularly with your folks on a one-on-one basis, and if maybe you have no agenda, but it's just like, hey, how's it going? How are you feeling? Do you need anything? Is there a training that maybe you feel like you need, or are there any perceived injustices that I don't know about for the last quarter? I don't want to get blindsided by that. Like, is there something? How you feeling? How's the job? How's life? all of that stuff. Just creating that time, man, not only will you be able to learn some stuff that you probably weren't expecting, but if you do that over a period of time, you're going to build trust, you're going to build partnership, you're going to build relationship, and you're probably going to build an employee that, you know what, when it does come time that they do feel like that, they're not just going to go, they're going to sit down and have a conversation because you've started that as just something that we do. Just this open line of communication with trust and partnership too. So I would encourage you with that. Anything else to add to this topic from either of you, Bethany, Diana? Anything else that you would add to this or feel like we haven't talked about, or something you feel like a pearl of wisdom we need to throw out there?
I mean, I think my thing is that if you really aren't getting what you need from your company or your manager or your employer, ask for it first before you're like, I'm absolutely done and I'm throwing my hands in the air, because leaving is hard and transitioning is hard and it disrupts, your goals in your life and all of those things. So if you really do want something, start with the conversation and ask for it.
No, I think that's really good. And we were even just talking about like what are some other things that employees could do to get some of that development. And so I think it's, what you said, Diana, the first conversation needs to happen internally with your boss to say what opportunities are there. And then I think other than that, whether it's internal, the answer is yes, absolutely. We could totally see you here. We'd like to see you improve in this area or whatever it is. Or if the answer is no, okay, fine. I think then another just resource to think about too is like who in your life could be a really good mentor for you that is in a position that can speak some wisdom into you about the type of position you want to be in, who can tell you the truth, who can challenge you, all of those things, and find that person too, and maybe spend some time with them and ask them some questions to help you get where you need to go in terms of development.
Awesome. I think we've covered it well. I think that's an interesting topic and something that seems to have popped up recently. And so I'm glad that we took some time to talk about that. If you have other topics, of course, or want to share our podcast, like we're open to all of that. Feel free to interact with us on social media as well. You can catch us on the podcast link. You can catch us on YouTube. I mean, we are everywhere, so much so you might become sick of our faces here pretty soon. Like we're all over the place and we love it as well. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the topic. Hopefully you took something from it as well. I'm going to say something that I told my son. He's in the military, and I said, man, listen, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you guys. You're probably doing a better job than what you're giving yourselves credit for right now. And new year, new you, right? Get out there and go be awesome. You got this.
Thank you for listening to the People Centric podcast. We are so grateful for you joining us every week. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Also, feel free to share on your social media with everyone that you know. It really does help us. If you would like to contact us, I have put our information in the show notes. Please reach out anytime. We love hearing from you. We will be back next week with a new topic. Until then, be well and lead well.